All right, welcome to the engineering class for October the 20th. I have looked over the submissions you guys turned in for your homework last night, and I was very impressed. Some of them were just awesome. Others of them they were really good. They may not have been awesome, but they were still really good. A few of you, very few of you still haven't turned them in. Guys, if you don't turn stuff in, you're not going to pass the class there. That's kind of important. Um, so get them in. I only accept 2 late assignments. So get them in now. All right. So let me show you some of the things that you turned in. I'm not going to go through all of them. Don't want to take the time to go through all of them. But let's pick some of them. Let's see. Hang on just a sec while I go to here. Okay, so let me share this with you. All right, here is one of the circuits. I'm not going to say whose it was. If you recognize it, once you see it operate, if you recognize the code as being yours, then you can speak up if you want. Now, these comments here, you guys hopefully realize that if you click on this button, you can make the comments go away, but only temporarily. If you want the comments to go away completely, you can click on it and then hit delete, and then click on this one and hit delete, and now they're permanently gone. All right, so let's play this one, or let's do this simulation here, and let's see if anybody wants to speak up and claim this as yours, and if not, that's okay. Let's start the simulation. Let's see what happens. Oh, by the way, some of these play music, so I better click on this button, otherwise you won't be able to hear the music. Okay, so here goes. Sorry, I should have warned you to turn your volume down there. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me start that again, and notice the pattern that it goes through when I'm not pushing buttons. But then I'm going to push buttons and you'll see how it changes. So I hope your volume is turned down. Sorry, I should have warned you on that last one. Here goes. Okay, I'm pushing that button there. It's not doing anything. Let's try pushing this button over here. Ah, blessed relief. It turns off the buzzing. Okay, and you see that it's flashing different lights now. Now, if I take my finger off the button, there it goes back. Okay. All right, so very good, very cool, mildly annoying, but hey, sometimes annoying is good. All right, so let's look at how they did that. So if I click on the code, I see this, and let's pull it out so we can see it a little better. All right, so here you can see the code. This is how they did it. And now this is, of course, just the drag and drop, right? So they say if read digital pin 3. So digital pin 3 here, that's, here, let's hide the code here and let's zoom in. Okay, so pin 3 is the one that's connected up to the button on the right. Okay, so you can see what they said is that they said if, and then they told the Arduino to read pin 3, and so if it equals 1, that means that that button has been pushed. All right, so if the button has been pushed, then all of these things here are the things that it does. And then here is the else statement. And so get familiar with these. You're going to be using these a lot. So here's the else statement. So what that means is if pin 3 has been pushed, then all the stuff up here is what it does. But otherwise, if pin 3 has not been pushed, okay, then it does this. All right, you see how it works. And in fact, and then afterwards, then it comes down here. So this is exactly the kind of code that I was hoping that you guys would do, so that if you're pushing the button, it does one thing. If you're not pushing the button, it does something else. And it involved both the lights and the speakers. So excellent. That was exactly the kind of thing that I was hoping for. So very nice job on that. All right, let's do this one. Let's see what this one is. Okay, so somebody here, you can see that they've rearranged my wires. The wires that I had didn't look quite like this, so they've done a little bit of rearranging. Nothing serious. It doesn't look like they really messed anything up too much. Let's see what happens when we start the simulation. So there we go. All right, so I'm seeing very fast flashes. I wonder what would happen if I push the button. So let's push this button and see what happens. Ah, okay, so it goes over to the right and then comes back. Okay, very cool. All right, now let's let go, see what happens there. Okay, it goes back to that really quick flashing. Now let's click the button on the right here and see what happens there. Okay, so now it goes to, oh, I see, first one, then two, now they're all three, and now it goes back and repeats. Okay, and then when I let go of it, it waits until it finishes the cycle there, and then it goes back to its quick flash thing. All right, so very nice. Okay, so it didn't play the buzzer. I was slightly disappointed on that, but that's okay. You know, I gave you guys a lot of latitude. I didn't tell you this is what you must do. I just, you know, gave you the latitude. So that's fine. So I'll give you full credit on that one. All right, let's take a look at this one. Okay, again, there's those annoying comments here. Let's turn that to get rid of the comments. All right, let's see what happens here. So I start the simulation. Not seeing anything. Not hearing anything, nothing. Okay, let's push this button, see what happens. Oh my goodness. That sounds familiar. Okay, I'll stop it there. Okay, I could keep playing. All right, hopefully you guys recognize that tune. So happy birthday to you too. Very nice. All right, definitely going to give you credit for that. Okay, now this last one. This last one really blew me away. This one was so cool. So in this case, the person who created this not only wrote some cool code, but they completely changed the circuit that I gave them, which was perfectly okay. I never said you couldn't. And so what this person did was they got rid of all the lights completely, and they added a whole bunch of extra buttons. And they also added a bunch of things down here at the bottom. So you see these things down here? These are called resistors. Now I had some in my circuit. I never talked about them. And my intention was that after we learn how to program, then we're going to come in and we're going to learn why these things need to be there and how electricity works. So basically, designing the circuit is the job of an electrical engineer. And electrical engineering is what we're going to do next after we finish with software engineering. So this person, the person who did this circuit, they completely modified my my electrical circuit, and good for them. I was really impressed to see that. So when they sent me this circuit, they also included a note saying, "Hey, Mr. Hendricks, it doesn't work." And so they had made just a couple little mistakes. I mean, when they wired it up, they got one of the wires in the wrong place. And when they wrote their code, there was one little tiny thing that went wrong. What they did was they wanted to have the number 1 in there, but what they put instead was the lowercase l. And it looks very, very close to the same, but the Arduino is very, very picky. If it's looking for a number 1 and you type in a lowercase l, the Arduino is going to say, and the Arduino is not going to accept that. So when this person sent me the code, it wasn't working. But then I looked at it and I was able to pretty quickly figure out what was wrong, and I corrected it for him. And so now it is working. Let's see what happens. So I start the simulation and nothing. There's no lights flashing, but you know, there's no lights. So of course they're not going to be flashing. So let's try pushing some of the buttons and let's see what happens. Okay, So what they've created here is an Arduino piano. I'm not sure that I would want to listen to the music for very long. That high pitch gets kind of annoying, but it's cool. We got an Arduino piano. So congratulations to you on that one. That one just blew me away. That was super, super, super cool. Okay, so I'm not going to do all of them, but that kind of gives you a feel for the kinds of things that other people have simulated. So Ibrahim is saying it's a xylophone. Okay, yeah, it does sound more like a xylophone than a piano. I'll agree with that. Okay, and so yeah, Giovanni he just admitted that last one, that was his. So congratulations, Giovanni. That was very cool. I was really
Yeah, thank
impressed.
you.
You deserved it. Okay, now let's take a couple of these and let's go back in here and let me go in and explore these a little bit more. Let's pick, say, this one right here. This is a good one. All right. So when you guys programmed these, you used the drag and drop blocks. So let's click on this. So if we say show code, and then let's slide this over so we can see it a little bit better. Okay. So all of the things that you used in here, these were what we call drag and drop blocks. So what you did was you came over the left and you pulled something in here, and then you may have said, okay, now I want to like wait for a couple seconds. And then, maybe I want to do a repeat here where I want to repeat it a couple times. So it's exactly like the code.org activity where you're dragging the blocks in. Now, by the way, I don't want to mess up this code, so I'm gonna throw those guys away, because whoever it was that programmed this one, they might get a little upset if I do this, if I mess up their code. Okay, so you were able to program it without actually knowing the real code. This drag and drop stuff, this is kind of a cheating way to do it, but I'm okay with this kind of cheating because I think it's a great way for beginners to learn how to do things, but it's not the real code. So do you remember when you did the code.org activity, there was a little button there that said show code, so you could see what was hidden behind the drag and drop blocks? Well, some of you may have noticed that you can do the same thing here with this Arduino simulator. You see this thing that says blocks? So if I click on this and I come down to blocks plus text, okay, there we go. So over here on the right, this is the real code. This is the stuff that I want you guys to learn starting next week. But for this week and for the assignment that's due next time we meet, you don't have to use the real code. You can use the drag and drop. But you are eventually going to need to use the real code. So I do want you to recognize that this is how it looks. And now there's a bunch of stuff in here that I'm sure that if you've never used an Arduino before, you're going to have no idea what it is. There's this thing called void setup. There's this thing called void loop, and those names aren't very helpful. So when people look at it, they kind of just get all their eyes glaze over and they say, I don't understand. Well, don't worry, because for the assignment that you need to do for next time we meet, you can do everything you need to do using these drag and drop things. So find some drag and drop command and drag it over here and put it in with your code. So you don't have to do anything at all with the real code if you don't want to. But I highly, highly encourage you to go in and look at the real code and just see if you can figure out the pattern. So look at the drag and drop stuff, look at the real code, and say, okay, well, I think I can see where this came from. I can see, how they worded that. That's not something I'm going to require you to do this week, but next week I am. So you might as well get looking at it this week. Now, one thing I do need to warn you here is that if you want to do really sophisticated stuff, like let's look at Giovanni's circuit here. So let's go to here. And so when I click on Giovanni's circuit, you'll notice there's no drag and drop blocks. They're gone. And the reason they're gone is because Giovanni, he went in to the real code and he made some changes in the real code that allowed him to do some things that the drag and drop do not allow you to do. I mean, the drag and drop stuff is great for simple stuff, but if you want to do advanced stuff, you have to know the real code. So let's look on this one here. So this is not Giovanni's, this is another one here. So when I click on show code, okay, so I get this. And so then here's all the drag and drop stuff, which, okay, let me pull it over here so we can see it. Okay, so if I want to see the real code, then I can come down here to so blocks plus text. Okay, so there's the real code. But when I click on this blocks plus text thing, do you notice I've got another option here that just says text only? So if I were to click on that, it gives me a warning message. It says that if I continue, then what's going to happen is that it will allow me to access the real code, but when I do that, I'm going to lose all of the blocks. So unless you know what you're doing, I would say let's not continue here. Let's go to cancel. Okay. So we want to do everything with the blocks for right now. But next week, we're going to go in and we're going to learn how the real code works. And if you know how to do the real code, then you can do some advanced things that you won't be able to do using only the drag and drop blocks. Okay, so let's talk about the next assignment here. So if we go into, okay, so let's go into here, go to our modules back here. And so here are all the various assignments. So the assignment that was due today was this one, the one about using the Arduino traffic light simulator, make something cool. This next one here, this next one is the last assignment for this term. And it is a midterm exam. Or actually, maybe I should say it's a final exam because it will be the last exam that we take this term. I'm sure you guys know that the term ends on Thursday, right? So this assignment that's due on Thursday is the final assignment of the term. It counts as a midterm exam. Notice it's worth 100 points. So definitely do this. A few of you have not been good about turning in all your assignments. And so if you blow off Thursday's assignment, you're blowing off the final exam. So that's like in your math class or English class, you know, just not showing up for the final exam. You're not going to pass the class if you don't take the final exam. So, okay, you understand? Do this for sure, but it's not going to be hard. So let's click on it and see. If you were able to do last night's assignment, you shouldn't have too much trouble doing this assignment that's due tonight. So it's the exact same hardware as before. It's got the set of 3 lights here, you know, the red, yellow, and the green, and it's got 3 over here. It's got a button here, and when you push the button, the blue light will come on. And also, more importantly, when you push the button, it will send electricity on to this wire right here. Okay, so we talked about this last time, but let's go over it one more time. Normally, I don't write your functional specifications for you. Normally, I make you write the functional specifications yourself. But you know, this time I'm gonna make it a little easier. All right, so I have written the functional specification for you. So this is it. So what you need to do is you need to read the functional specification and then make the circuit do what I describe here. Okay, so this is an electrical circuit that runs traffic lights, but not just at any intersection. This is an intersection where blind people occasionally need to cross the street, right? So as you've seen, there are 2 sets of traffic lights on the breadboard. Each one has a green, yellow, and red light. And each one also has a button that the blind pedestrian can push when they want to cross the street. Now, some of you might say, well, Mr. Hendricks, how can a blind person know where the button is? Well, okay, so in reality, if we were to do this for real, we probably wouldn't have it be a push button. What we would probably do is we would put a sensor there, like the kind that you use, you know, when you go to a grocery store, as you walk up to the doors automatically open for you because there's a sensor there and the sensor can see you. And so if the sensor sees you, then it knows to open up the doors. So what we would do in real life is we would have the same kind of a sensor here. So when the sensor sees that somebody is standing there, then the sensor will push the button for you, okay? But in our case, we're just going to push the button ourselves. All right, so what you need to do is you need to write the code so that if nobody is pushing any buttons, then the traffic lights just go through the normal sequence that a traffic light would do. So let's start off. So the traffic signal on the left is going to show red. And while it's doing that, then the signal on the right is going to show green for 5 seconds. Now, normally a traffic light stays green for longer than 5 seconds, but I got a little impatient here. Okay, so we're just going to have it be green for 5 seconds. And then after that, then it's going to go yellow for 2 seconds. And then finally, it's going to turn red. Okay. Now, I don't want the other one to immediately turn green. I want to wait one second after the other signal turns red. Wait for 1 second, and then we'll have the other one go green. And it's going to follow the exact same pattern as before. Maybe green for 5 seconds, yellow for 2 seconds, and red. And so we just keep on cycling through. So this is the cycle that it goes through if nobody is pushing either button. But if somebody is pushing a button, okay, so now they need to push it and they need to hold it down so that when one of the traffic lights is scheduled to turn green, right before it turns green, it looks to see if somebody is pushing the button that's associated with that light. And if it sees that somebody is pushing the button at that instant, okay, then it goes through a slightly modified cycle. So the green then, instead of being on for 5 seconds, is going to be on for 10 seconds. But, and now this is really important for the blind people. As long as the green light is on, I want the beeper to beep so that way the blind person knows that it's okay to walk across the street. And it should beep once per second. So that means it's going to beep 10 times. And each time that it beeps, I want the beep to sound for 0.2 seconds, and then I want it to be silent for 0.8 seconds. Okay, so it's going to do that 10 times. And then after that, we assume that the person has now safely crossed the street. So then the green light goes off, the yellow light comes on for 2 seconds, just like it did before, and then the red light comes on just like it did before, and then the other light comes on. Okay, so this is the pattern that I wanted to go through. If nobody, or if nobody's pushing the button, we do the one, and if somebody is pushing the button, then we do the other. Okay, and then the other thing that's worth mentioning is that the pitch, the tone level for one traffic light, I want it to be different than the tone light for the other one. So that way, the person who's blind, they will then know which way to walk. So if they hear one tone, they know it's safe to walk this way. If they hear the other tone, then they know it's safe to walk the other way. Okay. And now Ibrahim is asking, how would I make it so that if both buttons are held down? That's fine. That can work. So the way it works is when any one traffic signal is going to turn green, right before it turns green, it looks to see if the button for it is held down. It doesn't care what's happening to the other one. If both of the buttons are down, yeah, fine. It doesn't care. It only looks to see if its button is pushed. And if its button is pushed, then it does the blind sequence. Otherwise, it does the not blind sequence. And then the other one works the same way. So if you want to push both buttons at the same time, fine. Won't hurt anything. Okay. All right. So that is the functional specification. So your job then is to make the code so that it meets the requirements that are given in this functional specification, right? So this link right here is the same link as before. So if you click on this link, it'll take you to a nice clean version of the traffic light. So it'll take you to a version that has all of the buttons and lights and code and everything's wired up. All of the electrical engineering work has been done for you, but the software software engineering work has not been done for you. Okay, so there is the basic code here. So if we click on code, we'll see that there is some code in here, but it's the sample code that I put in for you before. So if I start the simulation, this is what happens. Okay. Okay. So if I'm pushing the button, it does that. If I'm not pushing the button, it does this. So this code that I've got in here is only a sample, but I think it's a helpful sample because some of you may not remember how to do the speaker. Because some of you in the circuits that you submitted to me, all you did was you had the lights flash. You didn't make the speaker sound. And others of you, all you did was make the speaker sound. You didn't make the lights flash. Okay. So if you look at the sample code that I've given you here, you can see how it works. And so let me just pull this down a bit here. Let me just do this real quick. So if I want to do an if statement, so that's under the control category. And there's if statements that have the else in them and if statements that don't have the else in them. So let's drag in the one that the if statement has the else in it. Okay. And so then, so you can see that for the if, I need to have one of these green things in there. So I click on the green thing, and that's where it does some sort of a mathematical test. So let's take this one and let's pull it in to right there. Okay, so you see, so it says if, and then what you see in the green here, that is the test that it's going to perform. So if that test turns out to be true, then whatever code I put in this first space here, that's the code that'll get implemented. If, on the other hand, this test right here does not turn out to be true, then it will not do the stuff in the first space, but instead it'll skip down to the one in the stuff in the second space. So I need some sort of a test to see if it's true. So if you look at the example code that I've given you here, okay, you see that in the example code, what I've told it to do is it says read digital pin number 2, because digital pin number 2 is where the wire is connected. So let's get rid of these guys. So if you see here, this button, let me turn this on here. Okay, so this button right here goes to this wire right there. And it's kind of hard to see on this zoom level, but if I zoom in a little closer here. Okay, right. So now hopefully you can see it a little better here. So this button, when I push it, the electricity comes in here and it goes here, and you can see pin number 2 is the one that it comes to. All right, so what we do then is on the code here, okay, you'll see I've got it set. So if digital pin number 2 is equal to 1, then it does that. All right, so I need that read digital pin number 2. So you see what color that is? So let's come over here. So input is what we want. And you see we got a bunch of code blocks here for input. And one of the code blocks says read digital pin whatever. So let's pull that into right there. Okay, so now it's going to say if, and then it's going to read digital pin, but the default is 0, and I don't want pin 0, I want pin 2. So what do? I click on that and I get a pull down of all the different pins. So pin number 2, that's the one that I want. And then this one is the test. So I want to know, is pin number 2 less than or equal to or greater than or whatever? So the test I want to perform is if pin number 2 is equal to something. Now, the way it works with the code here is if there is electricity there, then when it reads digital pin number 2, so what is, if there is electricity, it'll give a 1. If, on the other hand, there is not electricity, then it'll give a 0. So this is something that's called Boolean. So Boolean logic, okay, which is something we're going to learn a little bit more later. Basically, if there is electricity, then it's a 1. And if there's not electricity, then it's a 0. All right. So don't worry about the fact that it's called Boolean. Right. Okay. So what I've got now is saying that, okay. All right. So if this statement is true, then it will do some stuff here. All right. So let's put some stuff in there. I realize some of you guys are new at this. So let's see what could we put there? Let's say we want to turn on one of the lights. Okay. So if we want to turn on a light, that's considered an output thing. Okay. So if I click on the output thing on the left here, so these are all the output things we can do. So I want this one right here, the one that says set pin number whatever to high. So let's put it in there, right? So if there is electricity on pin 2, it's going to set pin whatever to high. Well, which pin do I want? Okay, let's suppose I want to turn on the green light. So if I follow the green wire over here, I see the green wire is connected to pin 7. Okay, so that tells me the pin I want to turn on is pin 7. So I set it to high. And let's say that I only want it to blink a couple times. So I could set it to high, and then I come to control, and I can tell it that I want to wait 1 second. And then I go back to output again. And so now I want it to go off. So I want to set pin 7, but I don't want it high this time. This time I want to set it to low. Okay. So that means that when I push pin number 2, it's going to turn on the green light, leave it on for 1 second, and then turn it off. But what if I'm not pushing pin number 2? So let's say that in that case, I want to turn on the yellow light. Okay. So again, I take my output and I put this under here, and I need to know what pin the yellow light is connected to. So it looks to me like the yellow light is connected to pin 6. Okay, so I'm going to turn pin 6 on, and I want it to wait for a while. So I come over here and I wait for 1 second, and then I want it to go off. So I bring it down here. Okay, so now I turn pin 6 to low. Okay, bingo. I've got my code now. So when I click on simulate, then what'll happen is that it'll read pin number 2. And if pin number 2 gives me back a Boolean 1, which means if there is electricity on pin 2, then what'll happen is that it'll do the code that it sees right here. But if it does not see that, if instead there's a 0 there, then it won't do this code, but instead it'll do this code. All right, you see how it works? Now, what if I want to play a song? Let's suppose that instead of turning on, instead of doing this, what I want it to do is I want to play a tone. Okay, I want this guy right here. You see this one that I'm dragging in right here? Okay, so that's the one that tells me to play the speaker, but I need to know what pin the speaker's on. The default here is 0. So if you look over at our drawing here, you can see that this is the speaker, and you can see it's plugged into pin number 11. So if I don't tell it that it's on pin 11, it's not going to work right. So I got to tell it, okay, I want the speaker on pin 11. And now there's all sorts of different tones here. Default tone is tone 60, but if I like, I can do tone 55, or I can do tone 46. I can play with different tones there, or I can just leave it at the default. And how long do I want the tone to play for? Well, I can play it for 1 second, or if I want, I can just play it for 0.2 seconds. Okay. Now it's probably a good idea to stick a wait down in here, and let's tell it that I want it to wait for 0.8 seconds. Okay. Now I don't want it, I better stop here. At this point, I'm getting worried that I'm doing too much for you, and that's not good. But you see how it works now? So hopefully now you can understand how you can set the code so that it will look to see if the button has been pushed. If the button has been pushed, then it does one thing. If the button has not been pushed, then it does a different thing. And hopefully you know how those things work. So if you want it to turn on lights, well, hopefully now you know how to do it. If on the other hand, you want it to beep, well, hopefully now you know how to do it. All right, so do you understand what the assignment is? So type in some yeses, some nos, or, so Silas, you have a question? No? Okay, I thought you had a question. Okay. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to turn you guys loose. Now we still have 40 minutes left. That's a lot of time. So what I want you guys to do is start working on this, but stay on Zoom so that if you have any problems, you can ask questions. So I will stick around on Zoom with you, at least for a while. I don't think I'll stay on for the whole 40 minutes, but I'll stay on for at least 10 or 15 minutes. And so that way, if you have any problems, you can ask questions. So go ahead and open up Canvas, click on the link, open up Tinkercad, and start working. And what I will do is I will pause the recording because there's no sense in recording if nothing's happening. So I'll pause the recording here. Everybody's awful quiet there. I hope that's a good sign, not a bad sign. Remember, I'm still here if you have any questions.